So, of course, with the amount of, with the spread of MBSR over the last 30 years, and with the exponential rise in the number of research papers and research studies and funding happening in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, certainly in Australia and parts of Asia, there is becoming a greater demand for very well-trained MBSR teachers. Because you could say in some ways, from a public health point of view, probably everybody could benefit from MBSR. And I don't mean that in the sense of saying it's what we would call a panacea. It doesn't necessarily change everybody. It's not like something miraculous. It takes a lot of work on one's part to actually learn mindfulness. There's a demand in some ways, or what we would call in psychology a demand characteristic. People have to come to the MBSR program for 8 weeks. They have to come for 10 sessions. They have to come for 1 day of a weekend, as well as during once every week for 8 weeks. They have to practice homework 45 minutes a day. They have to change their lives in some ways, because in this modern, very fast-paced society, none of us have 45 minutes. We have to actually make that 45 minutes. And so, in that sense, there is what is often called a high demand characteristic. But interestingly enough, what we've discovered over all of these 33 years is that if you ask a lot of people and you support them in that challenge, they tend to rise to the occasion. Across probably 23,000 people referred to the stress reduction program, the completion rate is 85%. And every study we do, whether it's with 100 people or 500 people or 1,000 people or 2,000 people, we see the same completion rate time after time after time. 85% of the people complete the course. That's a very high rate, and so it indicates in many ways that they're learning something they care about, and so they stay with it even though it's a strong challenge. And so you need very competent teachers, very well-trained teachers, to meet that kind of challenge that people come into an MBSR program with. And because it's not a therapy and it's an educational program, it means people have to learn actually how to teach well, how to be very in touch with the feeling of the group and the group dynamics that are taking place, be tremendously informed about the MBSR curriculum, and have a very substantive and ongoing personal practice of mindfulness that includes a daily regular meditation practice, that includes ongoing long periods of silent retreat, that includes ongoing study of stress from the medical side, stress from the psychological side, educational theory, group dynamic theory, some understanding of the science of mindfulness. Everyone needn't be a scientist, but you actually have to be willing to study and learn and make it a lifetime's vocation or calling, if you will. And so to meet that kind of challenge, at the Center for Mindfulness, we began an institute called the Oasis Institute for Mindfulness-Based Professional Education and Training. And we educate and train healthcare professionals and other kinds of professionals in the United States, in Europe, in Australia, in parts of Asia, in Canada, really on 5 continents. And the training is extensive. It goes on for probably 3 years. in most instances, maybe 4 years in some instances. And so on one hand, for people that are working in medical and healthcare environments, we tend to want to work with people that have a master's degree in health psychology or as therapists or as health educators, because often enough working in those institutions requires that kind of educational training. But what's happening as well is that mindfulness in its potential application and integration is beginning to move out into the greater society. So, for instance, there are applications of mindfulness with prison inmates, with immigrant populations, with children who are of school age, with teachers, with leaders in corporations and in nonprofit businesses, in the area of sports. So there are multiple applications of mindfulness that might not necessarily be MBSR, but would certainly share many of the major components of MBSR, but would then be specifically designed and tailored to very specific populations. And certainly there's a lot of research beginning to take place about the application of mindfulness and elements of MBSR in those various larger social milieus or social environments. And so in those areas, I think we actually need people who are familiar with them. I think if you're going to work in business, it really helps if you yourself have worked in corporations, if you yourself understand that language, you understand that culture, you understand that world, and as well, you understand the fundamental elements of MBSR through your own experience. Then you're able to develop curriculum and apply it in that sector of the society in a way that's authentic, that's genuine, and that people will respond to because they know that you understand their culture and that you're helping them to discover ways of meeting that culture in ways that might be tremendously valuable. And so, and different than if you were talking about running an MBSR program in a hospital or in a more clinical setting. Same with schools. When it's adapted to schools, it may not any longer be called the MBSR. It might be called something else. Like there's a whole movement in the United States around mindful schooling or mindful schools. They use many of the elements of MBSR, but it is an MBSR because MBSR was designed for a particular population of people. So what I hope is that we have well-trained professionals from many different fields beginning to enter these kinds of training programs. Not because they want to be MBSR teachers, but because they want to become good, if you will, mindfulness coaches, mindfulness teachers who have very specific areas in which they want to work. By example, just came from a 7-day training program in Austria. And there were about 25 people there out of the 200 people that were there that were specifically there because they work in the business sector. They're coaches, they're managers, some of them are executives, and they're convinced that mindfulness is really important for their colleagues, for their employees. Some of them were sent by their companies, large companies. And so this kind of moving out from the sectors of medicine and healthcare into the larger culture is something that the Center for Mindfulness has certainly supported for years, and therefore will also require different kinds of teachers. But our view is, and the experience from people who come through our OASIS Institute, is that even if they're not going on to be MBSR teachers per se, because that's not the area in which they want to work, that fundamental training is serving them very well as they then meet that training, develop their own internal capacities, keep up their meditation practice, their retreat training, their own continual self-study, and then the shaping of curriculum for particular sectors of the society. So maybe we can practice a little together. So I'm really happy to guide a little bit of mindfulness practice to give you a taste of what it's like. And of course, it will only be a taste. But how about if we begin by, if you're in a chair, sitting up straight and finding a comfortable place to rest your hands, maybe on your lap or on your knees. You could fold them if you like. And feel a sense of uprightness through the torso and the neck and the head without feeling like you have to be stiff. And you're free to either gently allow the eyes to close, or you can allow the eyes to remain open, and if they're open, just to let your eyes settle on the floor 2 or 3 or 4 feet in front of you. And so, since mindfulness has so much to do with this paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally, how about if we simply begin by paying attention to the fact that you're sitting in a chair? And of course, it's simple enough for the mind to produce a thought that says, well, of course I'm sitting in a chair. I know I'm sitting in a chair. But rather than to simply allow that thought to be the evidence and the only way of knowing, which is very indirect, how about if you actually feel yourself sitting in the chair? So, by example, noticing the pressure where the buttocks and the seat of the chair meet, so that you actually feel those sensations in the body. In the same way, maybe you can feel the way the hands are resting on the knees or on the thighs, or that they're folded together. You might even feel the air against the skin of the arms or against your face. And so what we're encouraging is a direct experience of this sitting here in the chair. You might notice your feet on the floor. Or the feeling of socks or shoes on your feet, if that's the case. Or if your feet are bare, the feeling of the air on the tops of the feet, or the floor, or a carpet on the soles of the feet, the bottoms of the feet. And so in this way, through the doorway of sensations in the body, we actually know directly, in this very moment, what it feels like to be sitting. And for a few moments, simply paying attention to whatever sensations the body is producing that are associated with this sitting. There's nothing you have to do. Rather, what we're learning is to actually direct our attention deliberately, on purpose, towards very basic foundational experiences. In this case, sitting, because we are sitting. And if you're not sitting and you're standing, then you can direct the attention to the feelings associated with standing or lying down. And of course the mind will keep producing thoughts, and for now, just letting those thoughts come and go, and seeing if you can become more attentive to simply the feelings associated with sitting, those feelings showing up as sensations in the body. There's nothing you need to do to stop the mind from thinking or imagining that you're supposed to make the mind blank or go somewhere else to some kind of state of meditation. There is no simple state of meditation. It's not helpful, by and large, to imagine you're trying to create some special state. And then in the same way, if you'd like to continue exploring this, noticing that just the way that you have been able to feel the actuality of sitting here, because you've been able to direct your attention to various sensations in the body. In the same manner, you can direct the attention to the feeling of breathing. Imagine we have been breathing all of our lives. That in some interesting way associated with physics, air comes into the body and enriches the body, sustains the body, quite literally. And then on an out-breath, the breath leaves the body, takes with it a lot of the waste materials produced by being alive. And then a new breath comes in. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to do anything about it. We don't have to make it happen. We don't have to improve it. And the evidence for that is that we're alive. In some ways, you could say, and it would be accurate actually, the breath is taking care of us. We're actually being breathed. Because if it was up to us to keep remembering to breathe, we would probably all be dead by now. We don't have to remember to breathe. So, in the spirit of mindfulness, rather than doing something, what's really happening is we're becoming familiar. We're becoming more intimate with what is already so, what is already true. And in this case, it is true that you're sitting. It is true that breathing is taking place, that there is an inhalation coming into the body, and there's an exhalation leaving the body. And it happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether we're sleeping or awake, across 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 decades. And so again, we're becoming familiar with what is already here, but perhaps knowing it in a new way, knowing it directly, not through the medium of thought, but through the directness of experience. So you might notice the breath going in and out. You might notice those sensations more easily in the belly, because the belly tends to inflate and flatten through the cycle of breathing. You might notice a gentle sensation in the chest. Some people find it easier to feel the breath right at the tip of the nostrils, because the sensations of temperature, of coolness as the breath comes in and warmth as it comes back out is easily discernible to them. For others, there's a more generalized feeling, as if the whole body is breathing in and the whole body is breathing out, and it's felt in a more whole body way. But the simplest and perhaps even the best way to practice for now is to simply find one place, one location in the body where you most easily feel the sensations associated with breathing. And you don't have to change the breath in any way. You don't have to improve it in any way. You don't have to operate on it in any way. And that might be a big relief. All that is being asked is that you attend. Human beings have this amazing capacity to attend, to offer the attention to something, in this case the breath. And whenever we offer our attention, something is returned to us through the medium of that attention. There's a kind of reciprocal process. So for instance, while you're offering your attention to the breathing, maybe you're noticing the body is offering you something back in the form of sensation, which is the way the body speaks to us. That is the language of the body. You might notice that there are changes taking place in what we usually call the mind. Or in the condition of the mind. You might notice that no matter what's going on, you are more able to know it directly. Just through this sitting here, just through this being aware of breathing. Just through this opening up to this very moment of our one life, the one life we are being given. We didn't make this life. It's very much like the breath. It's come to us. And so we have the opportunity to be alive for this life, to feel the way life pours through us, expresses itself through us. And in many ways, really, that we are life itself, expressing itself. and that we can be aware of this. So this is a very tiny taste. A very tiny taste of mindfulness. You might notice from time to time that you could simply stop in the middle of a very busy set of activities like writing a report or having to move from one meeting to the next and become aware of your breathing just for a few moments. You might notice that when you get in your car in the morning or at the end of a workday, or when you sit down to a meal with your family, you could take a moment to notice, to feel what it's like to settle in your chair, to sit. You might notice that you could open your eyes and look around the table at the people that you care about. Meet their eyes. Appreciate for a moment their aliveness, and your love for them, and their love for you. And in this way we become full participants in life, and mindfulness and MBSR are a part as well of what is often now called participatory medicine, which requires that we fully participate in what it means to take good care of ourselves. And that is a learning process, it's an adventure, it's a kind of odyssey that hopefully goes on for the entire life cycle, the entire life. And in this way, we learn how to be in relationship to ourselves, to others, and to the world in new ways, in ways that sustain and nourish and nurture us, and in turn sustain and nurture our relationships, and in turn sustain the world, and allow us to meet the world with a renewed sense of values, or new values and ethics that are filled with a sense of ease or kindness or caring. Because we're taking care of ourselves, we learn how to take care of others. And so, as you feel ready, and in your own time, perhaps taking a deeper breath in and a deeper breath out, and actually knowing you're taking this breath in and taking this breath out. And maybe once more. And maybe even before you open your eyes, asking yourself a few questions. What do I notice right now about the condition of the body, however it is? What do I notice right now about the condition of the mind, however it is? What do I notice right now about the condition of the heart, however it is? Because mindfulness and heartfulness are synonymous. The mind is not separated from the heart. And so we are learning to be present in the world fully. Heart, mind, body, all available. All known through this one awareness that is available to every one of us as human beings. Available to be known. And so when you feel ready, if your eyes have been closed, allowing the eyes to open, maybe looking around the environment, the room you're sitting. And knowing you can carry your breath with you everywhere you go. It's not special, and yet it's very special, but it's always here with us. And the body is the medium that carries us through the world, and so it is always here as well, to be felt, to be touched, to be known. And in this way, you begin to participate more and more fully in the very act of being alive.